Hi, everybody. It's Stacey Sobel with Salon Today Conversations, and today I have Randi Rose and Gayle Goldman from Thrive Business Services. They specialize in accounting and bookkeeping services for the professional beauty industry. So we wanted to delve into some financial things today. Um, I just saw a t-shirt that read, "Without data, you're just a person with an opinion." But that kind of led me to think about you guys. How important is understanding numbers for owners, and what does that tell them about where their business is going?
That's a great question. I want that t-shirt. I would say that on a scale, right, on a scale of 1 to 10, probably about a 22,
And
right?
where do you find most owners are when you start working with them?
Oh, it depends on where they are in their journey. So if somebody is coming to us having already worked with a business coach for a period of time, they may be further along on their journey than somebody who hasn't, right? So usually, rarely is, I don't think we've ever actually had a client come where there wasn't something where we could educate them on their information and on their numbers. Because what happens is usually people wind up meeting with their CPA or their
Mhm.
tax preparer. And they meet with their tax preparer once a year, generally, when it comes time to do their taxes, maybe twice if their CPA wants to do tax planning. So that the tax preparer is not really connected to their numbers other than for tax compliance purposes, which is certainly important. Never going to say that's not important. However, um, that's not necessarily going to tell you how you can pivot in the moment where you can be more proactive than reactive. So when I think of numbers, numbers tell you what emotions want. And a lot of times we all operate from emotions. And there's nothing wrong with emotions, but most emotions are not going to, oftentimes, emotions are not going to give you the most empowering context because they feed into your fears, oftentimes. So I remember looking at the Super Bowl this year, and one of the things for me about numbers that and preparing the importance of numbers and preparation was watching how the second half of the Super Bowl unfolded between the 49ers and the Chiefs. Because the 49ers, the Chiefs are the one that won, were the team that won. And you can see the Chiefs took it. Not only did they take it in the second half, but they took it in overtime, right? And a big part of that was because when they went into that football game, they already knew all of the potential scenarios at the end of the game, and they had a plan for what was behind door number one, for what was behind door number two, for what was behind door number three. So it didn't matter what happened, they had a game plan.
They knew how to pivot at that
They
moment.
totally knew how to pivot. And you could see it took the 49ers way off. And even so that there were some of the members of the team afterwards, they were like, we didn't even know that the rules in OT changed. And it was like, that was the difference for me. Like that was the difference in playing the Super Bowl to win and playing the Super Bowl. No disrespect to either team. You know, you have lots of teams, only two make it, really great effort on everybody's part. But that was the difference in the preparation of owning the information and being able to pivot. So, does that answer that question?
It does. It does. So speaking of being able to pivot, that's something that owners have had to do a lot over the last few years with the pandemic and then everything that came after that. What's unique about this time, coming out of the pandemic, having that access to funding from the government for a while, and now coming out of that? How are owners pivoting right now?
Um, what we found, and I would say about 40% of our clientele is in the beauty industry. So we do bookkeeping for other industries in addition. We're not just the beauty industry, but a good 40% of our clientele is in the beauty industry. And when COVID happened, it was it was an oh crap moment for oh so many reasons. But one of them was the rules kept changing.
Right.
And so it was like, here's this free money, but it had strings and nobody could tell what the strings were. And the strings changed length and how many strings there were moment by moment by moment, like every day, every week, there was another string. And one of our clients, who's been a client for a really long time, is Rowena Yeager. And she's always one of the best people. Like when something new's happening, she's like the first one. Okay, here's what I need. So we got to really play with the PPP. She's like, I'm applying for this. Now what? And what we found was people didn't know how to spend it so that they would get it wiped off, blah, blah, blah. Right. Well, that was what happened was for those companies that their model wasn't profitable to begin with. Some companies took that money and really used it to alter their model and to get real with themselves about their business. And those businesses that did that are very different today than they were before PPP and COVID and EIDL, right? Those that didn't change how they were doing business and using it as an opportunity to really step back, assess, look at their goals, look at how they operated their businesses. Do they have their ducks in order? Do they have their systems in place? Those people are out of business now. The days of like that kind of free money or really cheap money are over. Like to be able to say, oh, you mean I can increase my line from 150 to 500,000, no strings attached, no collateral? Okay, those are gone. Money's still available, but it's a lot more expensive.
Right.
People are very aware of the cost of money these days. And so now that they've experienced cheap money, they don't want to go back to paying for expensive money. So I have found that it's not so much that people aren't spending, but they're more aware of how they're spending and what they're spending on, and is what I'm spending going to produce a return on my investment. They don't want to spend just to spend because it seems like a good idea. They're more related to their bang for their buck, is what I would say.
What do you think about also, I know we've been kind of in this for 2 decades now, and I remember like talking about how the kind of cash reserves you should have, and I know historically salon owners haven't been very good about that. Did the pandemic like kind of shake people up a little bit, and now that's more important?
It's a great question. And by the way, thank you for the opportunity to talk with you. I realized
Oh, you're
totally
welcome.
skipped over that opportunity. Really, thank you. So I would say that people are more connected to the balance sheet. So when you look at like what are the things that owners need to know about, or small business owners, most people will talk to you about your P&L, or which is also your profit and loss. Like, okay, which is how much money came in, and how much money went out. And then they're like, okay, right? But that's not the full picture. And banks in particular don't look at your P&L. They look at your balance sheet. And your balance sheet tells a different story. It tells the story cumulative from the beginning of time of your business, depending, right? And the P&L is just for this period. It could just be for last quarter, last week, last month, last year, but your balance sheet tells you the story from the beginning of time. And so banks are asking, again, now that you go for financing, who do you go to financing for? They want to see your balance sheet. What's a balance sheet? Why is it important? What does it mean? And so educating people on the balance sheet is more important at this point, because when we look at someone's books, we don't start with your P&L. Because the truth is if your balance sheet's not accurate, neither is your P&L.
Right.
Right? And your balance sheet is what's connected to your tax return. The other is too, but not as much. That is where I find owners are way more cognizant of, am I able to sell my business? What's the value of my business? What do I want 3 years from now? COVID didn't just impact people's businesses. It kind of shook up the status quo. But it like really was like, why am I doing this? Then there were those businesses that, and your industry has changed over the years. Um, but then there were businesses that were doing a lot with cash. Well, technology doesn't allow for that as much
Right.
anymore. Like I can out my parents now because they're in their 80s. But
And
my brother,
clients' willingness to use cash and not use cash.
yes, but like when my brother was born in 1969 on January 4th, I'm pretty sure that my folks claimed him on their 1968 taxes. Who would have known? Do you know what I mean? You can't do that today. You The amount of money that goes through your business is not in cash anymore. It's all trackable. And so you had people that went to go apply for the PPP money and they couldn't get squat because they weren't claiming money. And so there really is a connection to that. So we find that people are way more above board now than they were before. At least that's what I've been seeing with the people that we've interacted with.
Now, you all do work with other businesses besides beauty, but you do kind of specialize in beauty. What are some of the intricacies of our industry that make accounting or bookkeeping challenging for people who don't work within the industry? Because what are some nuances that are different about us?
This is a great question. It's one of the reasons why we absolutely love working with people like Copsa Odie. April McDaniel's just phenomenal. Many uh, CPAs, again, there's nothing wrong with tax compliance. Tax compliance, really, we all have to do it. Bow down to the CPAs that keep themselves abreast of that. I don't want to. They just look at money in, money out. And the thing is that your industry isn't just a money in, money out industry. You have inventory, you collect sales tax. Well, even though that amount of money is hitting your bank account, that's not revenue to you. Not at all. Tips. You may collect tips, whether you're using Tippy or you're, having people fill out the IRS form to clarify it. It goes through payroll. You pay payroll taxes on it. That's not income to you. And if you're dealing with a CPA that doesn't understand that, even your revenue may be overinflated. We had a client that we worked with COPSA, and the way their state taxes were filed was based off of revenue, not off of net income at the bottom. That person had they were claiming $200,000 over in revenue because the tips were included.
Oh, wow.
That flowed to that person's personal tax return. That was a lot of money that cost that person because the CPA didn't understand the industry. That's probably one of the biggest things that we find is it's not just a cash in, cash out. The other thing is you guys are more of a hybrid. You do have inventory. Some of you have gift cards, but we don't see any of that information on the balance sheet. So if you were to go, again, you might have somebody that says their Mevo or their Forest says that they have $250,000 in gift cards, but their bank account doesn't even have $250,000 in it. So they've already spent that money. But from a cash perspective, money in, money out.
Right.
But if you were to go sell your business doesn't have value because you have all of these liabilities. You owe this money.
Right.
We've seen people buy businesses and then learn after the fact that the salon program actually showed that there were tens of thousands of dollars that this person was now on the hook to produce, even though they weren't getting the money for it.
What financial skills do you think are imperative for owners today?
Knowing that there is a balance sheet and a profit and loss, and they tell you a different story. Are you priced accurately? What are some of the other metrics? A lot of people operate their business from what's in my bank account, and they look at their bank balance. But Do you know what your break even is? Do you know how much it costs to keep your doors open if you don't do any sales? Do you know if you can afford your rent when you are fully at full capacity or at half capacity? Right? Don't sign a lease if uh if you can only afford that rent if you're at full capacity. You are gonna have a hard challenge there, my friend, because it's not gonna go. It's not a right off the bat. You got to do some work for it. Are you selling the right services at the right price? Do you know what your capacity is? Are you track if you do extensions? Are you tracking your extensions accurately as retail or as services?
I think it's also important to understand the ratios easily, to understand retail ratios for your employees and to understand service ticket ratios. And when you understand those, you can then explain those to your employees and have them be able to see where they can make a difference in the work that they're doing behind the chair.
Yeah. So they need to know what their average service ticket is, their average retail ticket, their retail to service dollar, all of those. Because if people can understand that this is how much my goal needs to be, but this is what I'm starting my day with, okay, how am I upselling? What are the things I have in my toolkit? What are the things I need to go learn? What are the things I need to teach my employees in order for me to hit my goals? If what you're selling is not profitable, you're never going to dig yourself out of a hole. You're only going to keep digging yourself further.
Well, and I would imagine with the expertise you all have developed in the beauty industry, you're also able to look at some of those KPIs and tell when they're in line with the industry and when they're way out of whack. And identifying maybe ways you can point people in the direction to either address challenges or seize opportunities.
Yeah. So we stay in our lane, and because really the place where we get a lot of our business is really from CPAs, coaches like Inspiring Champions, strategies. Those are the people whose people need our information.
Mm-hmm.
They can't do what they do best without us doing what we do best. And so understanding, being able to look at your retail business distinct from your service business and having that easily laid out makes a huge difference, because which is it that you really need work with? Is your retail keeping your doors open because your compensation's not right? There are tools out there that we can direct you to, and we will direct you to address, here's how I deal with my employees, here's how I deal with my front desk, here's how I deal with my compensation, right? Those are not the conversations we're going to have, but because we understand your industry, we'll identify those challenges and then be able to help you come up with the
Connect
solution.
you. Yeah, connect you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Financial coaches, who are the clients you really love to work with, and how do you think you best help them?
We love working with people who value the information. They have a plan for growth. They know that their numbers are the foundation for everything that they do. And they're interested in listening to their advisors in making those decisions. They're not afraid to they may not like the conversation, but they're not afraid to have the conversation with their CPA and to, suck in their belt and go, okay, what do I need to know? What don't I know? I got to where I am today. Now, what do I need to do to fix it? Everything that we deal with has to do with simplifying, giving the owner back time, scalability, and peace of mind. So accounting is one of the systems that's most easily scalable. It's process oriented, but you need to understand the information, because once the processing's done, okay, now what? That's the education piece. You can't just answer someone's question without providing education regarding the answer and how it impacts them. So people who are interested in understanding their information and feeling safe while they do it, because we're never going to judge you, are the people that we love to work with.
Well, Randy, Gail, thank you so much. This was really great to delve into this with you. And thanks for being part of our guide.
You're very welcome. It's a pleasure. We're in very good company.
You are.
We are.
So
Thanks,
thank you.
Stacy. We really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much.